Welcome to The Soil and the Soul, a unique podcast where we bring together individuals from different walks of life to explore the intersections of their worlds. Today we have a special treat for you, a conversation between Sarah, a third-generation farmer from the Midwest, and Dr. Michael Chen, a philosophy professor specializing in environmental ethics. Let's listen in as they discuss life, work, and the profound connections between humans and nature.
Well, Dr. Chen, it's not every day I get to sit down with a philosopher. Usually I'm knee-deep in soil or fixing a tractor.
And it's not often I get to chat with someone who's so intimately connected with the earth. Sarah, please call me Michael. I have to say, your farm is beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. It's been in my family for generations. But I'm curious, what brings a philosopher out to a farm?
Well, I've been always fascinated by the relationship between humans and nature. Farmers, like yourself, are at the forefront of that relationship. You nurture the land, and in turn, it nurtures us all.
That's an interesting way to put it. I've never thought of myself as being a forefront of anything. Most days I'm just trying to make sure the crops grow and the animals are healthy.
But don't you see? That daily work you do is profoundly important. It's a practical application of environmental ethics.
Now that's a fancy term I've never heard before. What exactly do you mean by environmental ethics?
Simply put, it's the study of how we, as humans, should interact with the natural environment. It involves questions about our moral obligations to the earth and other living beings.
I see. So in a way, every decision I make on the farm is kind of an ethical decision?
Exactly. When you decide how to rotate your crops, what kind of pesticides to use, or whether to use them all, you're making choices that have real ethical implications.
I never thought about it that way. For me, it's always been about what works best for the land and what gives us the best yield. But you're right. These decisions do affect more than just our bottom line.
That's what fascinates me about farming. It's a constant negotiation between human needs and the needs of the environment. How do you balance those competing demands?
It's not always easy, I'll tell you that. There's always pressure to produce more, to use the latest technologies, but there's always a deep connection to the land that's been passed down through my family. We try to farm in a way that'll keep the soil healthy for generations to come.
That's a profound sense of responsibility. It reminds me of the concept of stewardship in the environmental philosophy, the idea that we're caretakers of the earth, not just exploiters.
Stewardship? I like that word. It's how my grandpa used to talk about farming. He always said we were borrowing the land for our grandchildren.
That is a beautiful way to think about it. It brings up questions of intergenerational justice, our obligations to future generations.
Now you're starting to sound like a philosopher again. But I get what you're saying. Every time I make a decision on the farm, I'm not just thinking about this season's crops. I'm thinking about what the land will be like for my kids and their kids.
Exactly. And that long-term thinking is something our society often struggles with. We're so focused on the immediate gains that we often overlook the long-term consequences of our actions.
I can see that. In farming, you can't just think about here and now. One bad decision can affect your land for years to come.
That's a lesson many could learn from farmers. But I'm curious, Sarah. Do you ever feel a conflict between your role as a food producer and the role as a steward of the land?
All the time. There's always the push and the pull. On one hand, I need to produce enough crops to keep the farm running. But on the other hand, I want the farm in a way that is sustainable. It's a constant balancing act.
That's a microcosm of challenges we face as a society. How do we meet our needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet theirs?
It's not easy, that's for sure. But I think the key is to always keep learning, to open your mind to new ideas. That's why I'm glad to talk with folks like you, Michael. It helps me work in a new light.
I feel the same way, Sarah. I feel the same way. Talking with you gives me a new appreciation for the practical applications of the ethical principles I study. It's one thing to discuss these ideas in a classroom, and another to see them played out in the real world.
Well, I'm glad my muddy boots and calloused hands can offer you some insight.
They offer more than insight, Sarah. They offer more than insight, Sarah. They offer more than insight, Sarah. They represent a deep wisdom that comes from working closely with the land. In philosophy, we often talk about different ways of knowing. There's a theoretical knowledge, which is what I deal with in my academic work. But there's also a practical knowledge, the kind that comes from experience and hands-on work. What you have is profound practical knowledge of the environment.
I appreciate that, Michael. Though I have to say, all this talk of philosophy and ethics, it's making me see my daily work as in a new light, really. It's both exciting and a little overwhelming, I will say.
How so?
Well, it makes me realize the weight of the decisions I make every day. If what I'm doing really does have all these ethical impacts, how do I make sure I'm making the right choices?
Well, that's a great question. And it's the heart of ethical inquiry. The fact that you're asking it shows that you're on the right track. Ethics isn't about having all the right answers. It's about continually questioning and striving to do better.
I suppose that's true in farming too. We're always experimenting, trying to find better ways to work with the land.
Exactly. That's the scientific method in action. Yes, it's another way that farming bridges the practical and the theoretical.
You know, Michael, this conversation has got me thinking. Maybe we need more dialogue between folks like you and folks like me. Between the thinkers and the doers.
I couldn't agree more, Sarah. In fact, I think that's exactly what we need to address. The environmental challenges we're facing. We need the theoretical framework that philosophy provides, but we also need the wisdom. Okay. We need the theoretical framework that philosophy provides, but we also need the wisdom of those who work closely with the land.
Well, you're welcome back to the farm anytime, Michael. Maybe next time I'll put you to work.
I'd be honored, Sarah. Though I warn you, I'm much better with books than I am with tractors.
Don't worry, we'll start you off easy. Maybe some weeding in the vegetable garden.
Deal. And in return, I'll bring you some philosophy books for your reading pleasure.
It's a deal. It's a deal, Michael. Though I might need you to explain some of the big words to me.
And there you have it, folks. A meeting of the minds between the soil and the soul, the practical and the theoretical. We hope this conversation has given you some food for thought about our relationship with the environment and the profound wisdom that can come from working closely with the land. Thank you to our guests. Thank you to our guests, Sarah and Dr. Michael Chen, for this enlightening discussion. Join us next time on The Soil and the Soul for more unique conversations that bridge the different worlds and perspectives. Good night.